This is John Bernhard on the Podcast Express, and, well, it's a big one today. We're talking about Big Trouble in Little China. This is John Carpenter's 10th film, and, well, it's one of my favorites. With me, as always, is Al Schwartz. Welcome to the program once again,
Thank
Al.
you, John. This is a big one and a little one at the same time. This movie contains multitudes. It's and as such, we needed more than one guest to properly get our arms around it. So we brought back our I believe our first guest ever was Joon Kim, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's true. Don't worry. It's just me, Joon Kim.
Incredible, smooth introduction. That's your Kim Cattrall voice, huh? That's pre-Sex in the City. Right. She hasn't gone fully breathy with it.
It's me.
It's me. And Joon, who you brought with you today?
I brought one of my best friends to the podcast today. He's my friend Lee No. We've podcasted together before on his podcast about several things that we just like talking about. We just give each other a lot of grief over our opinions. So I figured Big Trouble in Little China is not a movie that I grew up with, but it is one that Lee grew up with. So I figured it would be good to have somebody representing that faction as two Asian Americans.
Already outed. Okay. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Joon. And also, it would have been nice for you to mention the name of the podcast that we were actually talking on at least 4 episodes in.
Oh yeah, that's I was setting up for you.
There we go. So the name of the podcast. So first of all, my name is Lee Ngo. Also find and pronounce as Lee No. And I am really, really, really excited to be on this podcast because I can't remember how many times I've seen this film. I also have a complicated relationship with this film, but over time have worked through that as well. And the podcast that Joon has actually been a frequent guest on, I think the first 4 episodes because we had so much to talk about, is called The Pork Chop Express.
Oh, well, shit.
Spelled.
Okay.
You can follow a lot of our antics, although I'm working on yet another episode with Joon on the greatest film in the last year called RRR. But you can follow a lot of my antics at Pork Chop XPRS on Instagram mostly. There's a Patreon and all that stuff too, but the Instagram is pretty much where I.
So have you done a Big Trouble episode on that show?
Is it entirely a Big Trouble? Like, is it?
it could have been. It could be just 40 episodes on like what's to do with X and Y, what's that thing that's floating in the air or whatever.
I think you.
But
could,
I have honestly done at least 1 or 2 episodes on Big Trouble in Little China with other podcasts, and so I'm trying not to be redundant here, but we'll just, you know what, it's hard. Why not? Like, there's just so many things you could talk again and again and again about with this film.
There are about 40 characters in this movie, and I would say maybe one of them feels like actually necessary for the story. It's like, obviously you need more than one character, but other than Lopan, it almost feels like there's a way to lift out every other character from this.
Is this the first salvo? Because I'm already like, there's so many. There's a few of them.
Here's the way. This is such a baffling movie when you're trying to classify it. Like, but you've been with this movie for a long time. How would you classify its genre? Is it an action movie? Is it a spoof? Is it a kung fu movie?
I would not. I mean, there's kung fu in it, so to speak, or martial arts, sure, but it's not necessarily like a film that I would go to as a blueprint for watching good martial arts compared to, say, Jackie Chan films or Donnie Yen films or Jet Li films. Like, that has fantastic action, but it's there. I mean, you know, a street brawl surrounding an 18-wheeler had to have some choreography to it. Mm-hmm. I think this film is, to me, it's funny because I was talking to a friend about this very podcast episode, and he completely forgot that it's a John Carpenter film. But then upon remembering and then seeing it, it's like, oh, this is definitely a John Carpenter film, right? You know, I guess to go back, the question about genre is really challenging because there are so many different things going on with it. And for one, it, to me, is still very much a John Carpenter film. But then from there, I would say, what is John Carpenter trying to do in this kind of film, right? And it's weird because I don't like speaking, say, as an Asian head in this room to from that perspective, because for a lot of people growing up watching this film, it was just like a weird thing. It's like when Ang Lee directed Sense and Sensibility, and we're all like, why is this happening? But it somehow kind of works. And I like to pretend that it's a completely fantastical, nonsensical, like it's just going to go the exact opposite direction of trying to do the right job of relying on any lore that this is based on, and it's just going to make crap up that is just awesome onto its own, right? And so I don't have to have such a complicated relationship, say, with my own heritage and culture while watching something that is completely wild and insane that I've probably thought up as a 12-year-old. So fantasy for sure. I don't know if it's like as funny as it really wants to be.
It's
like,
pretty funny.
Or I don't know. It's really hilarious, but I don't think that was like the intention to make a clear comedy. I'm going to presume that came about during the production process, especially for someone like Kurt Russell. And I can talk on and on about that whole thing. But
I mean, that's an interesting question because the central Jack Burton character is such an inherently comedic character that it seems like it definitely was in there as an intention. But I think you're on something interesting there that you're right. It's a fantasy movie, but it's a contemporary set fantasy movie, which is a much narrower genre.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see a lot of those. Maybe in the 80s, there was a couple of other ones. I mean, really, I think you're right. This isn't a very representative John Carpenter movie.
No.
Because it is kind of a full-blown comedy, and it's got the martial arts thing that's not a signature of his. It's not really horror tinged the way that, I mean, I guess there's some monsters, but come on, they're Sesame Street Muppet monsters.
I mean, there's got to respect some of those creatures that belong to no other, maybe D&D, but there's no other culture that like really understands these monsters the way that they're described.
There is a Beholderkin in this movie, but
thank you.
But if there's one shelf, like there's one genre that this belongs to, it to me, it's just the 80s movie. It's a movie that would make sense in no other decade. I mean, it doesn't even fully make sense as it is, but you know, it's more than kung fu movies or other even like buddy movies. You know, that this has a bit of not buddy cop because they're not cops, but you know, racially mismatched buddies on an adventure type of thing that was popular in the 80s.
Racially mismatched buddies.
But it's Buckaroo Banzai, I was going to say, is what feels spiritually closest to this. Even though that's
a writer. The guy who directed Buckaroo Banzai rewrote this.
There you go.
Yep.
That makes a lot of sense.
I want to say a pretty bold statement, and I know I've told Joon this before in our many, many conversations. I personally find a lot of similarities as a fantasy film between this and Star Wars. And hear me out. All right.
I see it.
And the real hero, not the protagonist, but the real hero of Big Trouble in Little China is Wang. Right. He's this like really plucky person who's really interested in getting the girl, and he has amazing Jedi-like abilities to flip like 90 times in the air and all that. You've got like an evil villain, you've got an old mentor, and you've got this aloof, I'm just trying to get my truck back. Like replace the Pork Chop Express with the Millennium Falcon, and you pretty much have a similar plot between Big Trouble in Little China and Star Wars. And so to me, this is fundamentally a fantasy epic story, but instead of taking place on Tatooine, it takes place in the lovely seedy underbelly of the Changsings and the
I mean, you have to save the princess plot line, and you know that the sort of emperor, you know, evil wizard figure with his henchmen.
There's an Obi-Wan Kenobi too.
Yeah. Weird that the Obi-Wan Kenobi like mentor figure doesn't come in until like halfway through the movie.
And then there's Egg-Shen is more like a Yoda,
Jedi Master. Yeah.
Especially when it's him and James Hong literally going
The best.
That's I just actually, because I wanted to brush up, I actually just rewatched the movie just before this, and I was just like, you know, having a great time during their ring finger like projection fight. Like, it doesn't do anything other than look awesome, right? It doesn't solve anything. It doesn't move anything forward. It's just...
Oh, no, it really is Obi-Wan and Vader. Like, you know, they're old nemesises, and they're having a magic battle that seems to have been going on for decades. And it kind of manifests as Street Fighter a little bit.
That's interesting, because I showed this to my stepson because he wanted to know what we were watching for the podcast. I was like, hey, I got one that you might actually be able to watch. And he's obviously never heard of this. You know, he's 12 years old. Yeah. And so he asked me, what is this movie about? And I started to try and describe the plot to him. And about 2 sentences into the plot, I went, it's basically the plot of like Double Dragon. It's a couple of buddies. One of their girlfriends is kidnapped by an evil gang, and they have to sort of like fight their way through themed gangs on the streets of Chinatown to fight their way towards an evil sorcerer. And yeah, it's a beat 'em up arcade cabinet plot.
interesting. Like,
Fine by me.
These are all very
Bad
these are all
dudes.
very
Bad
accurate.
dudes.
But the thing this always reminded me of is sort of a kid's adventure film. The Goonies,
Yeah, there's some of
almost
that.
more than anything. That like, oh my God, there's this incredible subterranean world, but it's not it's not in some faraway land. It is literally just underneath the place I walk by every day, and it goes so much deeper, and it has way more magic than I would ever have imagined. And that's sort of where I would file this is, I guess, a fantasy adventure film. But yeah, I mean, it's really hard to pin down. Not least of all because of the Jack Burton Wang dichotomy is so unusual. I mean, I guess it is Luke and Han, but it's not presented that way, And it's look, I'll tell you, I've seen this film I don't know how many times, 30, 40 more. This is one of my movies. This is one of my big ones. This is like top 10 period. Probably the film I've seen most of any of the films we've spoken of on this show, Al.
Wow.
I go very back with this. This is my first Carpenter. This one's huge for me.
I realized watching this with my stepson, I thought that this is a movie that I had seen 5 or 6 times. And then as we're sitting there, I realized there's a 15 to 20 minute stretch in the back half of this movie that I had just never seen before.
Oh, wow.
The part where they're going in through the tunnels in the most
So
D&D
good.
portion of it. I guess I had always skipped somewhere between them escaping in the bus from the first time they go in to them like confronting Lopan and taking their MDMA.
There's some really important character work that happens in those tunnels. Like I love that. My favorite scene of all that. It's okay if we totally spoil things. Watch the film, people. Yes, yeah. But my favorite film is as they're kind of crawling in a very Monty Python way, as you described, through the tunnels. Then out of nowhere, just like from a hole, some monster just comes in and grabs one of the Chang Sings. And Egg Shen, doing the Egg Shen, keeping it cool, throws like this magic grenade in there and says, "That will come out no more." And Jack Burton's just like the rest of us, like, what? What won't come out? And that's it. They don't bother describing it any further. And to me, like, that's the part where if there's any concerns about representation or where this is based on anything, I'm like, no, this film is so not preoccupied with that. It's just making up amazing things. And it probably, I think, as I'm so glad you mentioned The Beholder, because my youth in D&D is the whole thing. But like, I think this film actually does have a lot more in common with like D&D than it does to say wuxia films from China or what have you, which like are another whole thing.
The plot certainly feels sort of tossed together the way that a D&D campaign would be. I just said now this monster and now this.
It's written by a 13-year-old boy. I bet. Like that's what I feel like what happened here.
You know what? This is the scene you just described. Just the spider monster just comes out of nowhere and grabs somebody. For some reason, 2 instances in this movie remind me of The Hobbit, the Peter Jackson Hobbit movies. One of them being, oh my God, it's the stone giants. Oh well, that's next. They just kind of move on, right? It's like they're just there. Next, and then later in the third Hobbit movie, when Bilbo, right? Bilbo before the big final battle gets knocked out. Just like I missed the big battle.
This is much more intentionally comedic about that beat than that is from. I mean, look, you're a better man than I never made it to the 3rd Hobbit movie.
I had a great time with all 3.
Yeah,
I know John did
I've
too.
seen the R-rated version of the 3rd Hobbit movie. I've gone.
Yeah,
it's
with
insane.
the Mario Kart sequence.
That's a weird movie, man. You all of a sudden there's like R-rated war violence in a Lord of the Rings movie. It really takes you back.
That was always,
no,
PG-13,
much more.
Yeah,
but no, it's like Saving Private Ryan. All of a sudden with orcs. It's nuts.
Well, okay, so brings us back to Big Trouble in Little China. That was one weird thing that totally showing this movie to a 12-year-old too. It's like this is the plot of Double Dragon, and the tone is very, very goofy. It is not at all like scary with the monsters or anything or whatever. And all in all, it feels like it could be a PG movie you could show to a 9-year-old with this one detour into like a sex trafficking ring.
Well,
Another thing that feels very 1980s, though. to
I
it.
don't think he's going to make. I don't think he's trying to make a kids film here. I think
No.
he's making a movie that would entertain him, and that's awesome. You know,
Yeah,
yeah, and they happen to have a sensibility that is at least running concurrent with teenage boy. You know,
I listened to the commentary track for this movie as well, and I've heard the legendary chemistry
they're a
between
blast.
Carpenter and Russell, and it is a very jovial commentary, and it's just them just cracking up about each other's lives, their sensibilities, deciding whether or not Gracie Law's lipstick should stay on Jack Burton's mouth, like for like an extended part of the movie
Answer is
before
yes.
they wipe it off.
Answer
Like,
is-
yeah, that would happen. So that's the tone that they're approaching this with, yeah. And this was like this was a work for hire gig for Carpenter, right? Because this was a script that was originally set in the Wild West with the ancient Chinese influences, and then that got rewritten by
W.D.
somebody
Richter,
else.
Buckaroo Banzai,
Then-
yeah.
which is what Carpenter, which
Yeah,
Carpenter
I
was
guess
more
the thinking
into.
was that there was so much, out there fantasy stuff and layered in with the
Right.
sort of with Chinese folklore, which is not as familiar to American audiences as Western
Or
Western
Chinese
European
audiences.
tinged fantasy we're very attuned to,
Right.
and having that also
Right.
be back in time in turn of the century San Francisco was sort of asking too much of the audience to like
it's a
too many
budget
layers.
too. It's more expensive. Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh,
And it
Right.
turns out there's plenty of weirdness to
Right.
ask of the audience still to be found setting it in the present day.
Mm.
So maybe it's probably the right call. I mean, and it's as much fun as Kurt Russell's having doing a John Wayne riff with his sort of mannerisms as Jack Burton. I think it's probably even funnier as a 1980s trucker than it would be an actual cowboy getup.
mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's a choice that only helps the film. It really makes it's such a unique, its own thing movie. There's no other movie like Big Trouble in Little China. I mean, we've been trying to like compare it to all these things, and find what tone it has. It has all those tones, and then tones beyond that nothing really catches. There's nothing in the Carpenter catalog that feels remotely like this. I wouldn't say he makes slow films, but he does make measured, films that take their time. This thing is a rocket sled of pacing. This thing is cut so well. The plot is, chaos. It really is like they go on 4 little sub adventures, and then none of them work until the last one. Really, like they're all kind of trying to achieve things, and then they don't. It gets fucked up, and they have to start over. It's crazy plotting. The mythology is. Well, first off, it's some of my favorite world building in any film ever. It's just they throw so much information at you. They throw so many characters at you. It's just a million things that you're just like, oh yeah, oh yeah, wow, oh, you mean David Lopan, who's the president of the Wing Kong Exchange and hasn't been seen in 50 years? Oh man, him? He was above ground, and like, what? You talk about that giant guy? And it's impossible to hold on to this. It took me like 4 or 5 times to really have a clear sense of what was going on in this film.
I will say so much, if I may jump in on this question of world building. And that's actually such a challenging thing to do, especially with something where even to this day, people think, how does this represent Asia? And my answer is it doesn't. It represents maybe a goofy version of San Francisco. But what's really fantastic about this is that there is so much exposition dumping happening throughout. Largely just Wang telling Jack what is going on in a very arbitrary sense. Like, oh no, they're the Chang Sings. They're the good guys. I'm like, oh, okay. But I think I'm just thinking now, like, it all works is because you've got Jack Burton reacting the way that we're reacting to all this overloaded information. Like, what, how, who, okay, fine, truck, and because especially there's these scenes where they're just hanging out at their little HQ and just kind of regrouping for their next little salvo or what have you. It's just so helpful. None of that would work without Jack Burton just kind of being like, all right, I'm so done. Like, can I just, like it's like that. It builds a sense of empathy so quickly. And I think, and I really love to talk almost to an extent about Jack Burton and Kurt Russell's performance
Of
because
course.
despite to me, he's a complete buffoon from end to end and completely self-interested, but not just like myself, but from Quentin Tarantino to the Guardians of the Galaxy or whatever, they worship this character and worship Jack Burton. Like he's still there's so much to adore about him, and I think that's worthy of some interrogation.
That's true.
Right?
When I was watching this time, one of the things that surprised me most about it that a rewatch this did was make me appreciate Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 more. Because I realized how much God, Chris Pratt is just doing Jack Burton. That's his Star-Lord character. Like,
Boom.
That's why Russell took the role. They showed him the first movie, and he was like, "Oh, he's doing me in Big Trouble." Yeah.
And I guess I just had never thought about that, explicitly before. But yeah, it's such a straight line.
Yeah.
The thing is, what Chris Pratt doesn't do. While there's a bunch of exposition about world building of this Chinese folklore going on, he's in the background in a skimpy wardrobe robe, calling about I pay these guys so much money in insurance for my truck. It's like,
and I don't want to hear "Act of God."
What does that mean? China is here. What does that mean? I don't know. He's back on the phone, not even waiting for a response. It's good.
I was like, oh, they dropped my phone.
So the other thing's good. One thing I would scroll back to it. Lee said that he was totally self-interested, and I don't think that's quite true, which is part of the key to making him actually likable. He's got his own sort of interest in his truck, but he kind of moves past that very quickly. And one of the things I think sells this character, the relationship with Wang very much is as they're driving away from the airport and Wang starts to say, "I can't ask you to do this, Jack," and he cuts him off and it's like, "Where are they?" Like, I'm in this now. It's not entirely altruistic or whatever. It's probably just mad that the guy tripped him.
Yeah.
But he's inserting himself.
There is a sense of honor about Jack, for sure. He has a code, and he does have a good friendship. Like, if he wasn't, he would completely just abandon him. I also think that code extends to the truck.
Yes.
And to me, I believe the truck is one of the largest MacGuffins throughout this kind of film that guides it through. But it is a nice balance between, I do think he's selfish. I do think even one of the classic scenes when someone tried to explain is but he killed Lo Pan. It's he didn't. He killed Lo Pan because Lo Pan tried to kill him, and he just reflexively threw the knife back out of pure self-defense. Sure, one can call that a heroic move, but I wouldn't.
Oh, sure, he killed the evil sorcerer.
But
I'll give him that much. That's the only thing he does the whole movie.
Kind of almost accidentally, he kills the evil sorcerer.
He kills that one big armored guy that he stabs through the stomach and then gets stuck because it's so heavy. There's so one of the things that really enjoyed, and they talk about it on the him and the Carpenter commentary, how much they were just everybody that Carpenter was talking about how great it was that everybody that worked on that movie was on the same page, and if one person wasn't on board with that tone they were going for, it would have thrown the whole thing off. And the Kurt Russell thing, somebody who was just so game to be a buffoon and just lean into it, without any sense, unselfishly, in a way that really stands out from all the stuff you hear about, Dwayne Johnson and Vin Diesel and Jason Statham not wanting to take, one more punch than the other guy, right? This is Kurt Russell is so generous, with a director you trust.
I feel like I'm being attacked, but I'm going to concede on these points because he does do a fantastic job and makes the film really work. So.
Oh yeah.
No,
Dwayne Johnson wants to remake this. Dwayne Johnson was trying for years.
Right, and that's a really funny thing.
He should play a role like this. That would be the best thing he could do. But yeah, he shouldn't play this role.
I'd rather have John Cena or something, someone who can
Cena could do it.
Cena could do
watching Peacemaker and seeing
this
self-deprecating.
This character has become popular, I think. And I would say that this is kind of the first time anyone really nailed it. I mean, maybe you could quibble and say Ash and Evil Dead, although it's really the second one, so it's about, contemporary with this, where he becomes that type. But sort of the blowhard hero, I think it almost always works. I can't think of too many versions of this that don't work. This is a good format. Yes,
Han Solo is basically that. Yeah, Han Solo is basically that. It just doesn't lean as hard. Doesn't lean as hard into it. It's off in the kind of the fringes. You don't really.
Jones has a little bit of that too. in
little.
him
Mhm.
that that
Right.
the bit that connects like them to Indiana Jones is the bit in Raiders of the Lost Ark when he's laying out all right, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, and I say, well, what about such and such? And he goes, well, I don't know, I'm making this up as I go along. And you have that same beat essentially in this,
Right.
where Jack's on top of the cage looking down. He's like, how are you gonna get us out of here? And he goes, I have no idea. And it's so much more overtly comedic in this version. And
Right.
Mhm.
but I think that the thing that made it so charming about Jack Burton, and it's part of what makes Indiana Jones endearing too to me, I guess a storytelling philosophy that I would ascribe to is you should have your hero lose as many fights as you can without grinding the movie, like without the movie just ending. Like a lot of times a hero can't lose a fight because they'll be killed or whatever, the movie will be over. But if you can let the hero lose and have the story keep going, the story and our connection to that hero tend to be better. And Jack Burton remains charming because he pretty much flops and fails at everything he attempts in this. Even right before he kills Lopan,
his
there's the bit where he
win-loss
throws,
ratio.
yeah, he tries to throw the knife and just straight up whiffs and knocks the gong.
Right.
And then his expression is just like,
I
it's like, so yeah, it's that buffoonery, like mixing that machismo, like with that overt machismo with that buffoonery. Like even Harrison Ford, like the way he runs is really goofy as Indiana Jones, right? He does this big wide stride when he's like water, like that kind of stuff. Like there's buffoonery in that makes these like really heroic masculine characters really.
Yeah,
like, we
Indy
love
gets his
that,
ass kicked
right?
a lot, and that's why we love him. But he is also very competent. You know,
Much
you
more
don't get
so.
the sense that Jack Burton is
Yeah.
particularly competent. He just has bravado and spirit in spades. You know, like he will absolutely jump right at the monster, and that is endearing. Yeah, and he also has more quotable lines than just about anyone outside of Han Solo. Everything that comes out of his mouth is hilarious and delivered perfectly.
But I would argue, well, I agree with everything here. I would argue, though, that if we reflect back on Star Wars and reflect on Indiana Jones, there are so many moments of failure and so many moments of accidental success that are in themselves charming, that have to at least have influenced or been influenced by like this film.
Oh
right?
yeah, it's a
Yeah,
type
for sure.
Yeah. It's like a ever escalating. You get Han Solo, who gets like, he's heroic, masculine, but he's also like, the thing's not working. He's like, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. Right? And there is that element of just like this offense that he takes, and like Carpenter takes that type and just expands more on it. And then we get it's like a lineage from that to Han's Star Lord.
That's why everyone loves Star-Lord. That's why Star-Lord works, and it's why nobody else is really doing that right now. That kind of character that we got a lot more in the 80s. And I think that's why he pops so hard in that role, and not when he's not doing that. When he's doing other roles, it doesn't work for Pratt. Yeah.
Right. It's he's really boring if it's and that is perfect role for Pratt.
I guess what he adds is that he's kind of got like a little kid pretending to be Jack Burton quality.
Yeah,
as
that's
well.
what makes him, sort of the millennial version of Jack Burton. Is that he's we're all legacy heroes at best. We're all stuck with the 1980s forever. Sorry, getting hung up on Harrison Ford here, but I think that's sort of the genius of Harrison Ford. And I think about it, both Han Solo and Indy, that being able to sort of straddle both sides of that line is that Indiana Jones can square up to the camera and have a fist fight where he actually wins and be totally like sexy action hero guy. But then he can also do the sort of thing Joon was talking about, which is the things are going wrong, sort of like panicked shuffle towards the camera, where it just got to see on his face with every step, just going, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. And Jack Burton is just that shuffle, panic shuffle, like all of the whole movie, all the way through.
This time, rewatching it just this morning, I was cracking up when he's wheeling back in the wheelchair, going.
Amazing set piece. Amazing.
I can't continue that scream, but his face expression, just sheer animal terror. It's just really, really funny, and you just love him all the more for it. And it's just something like not a lot of actors can pull that off. Kurt Russell can, Harrison Ford can. It's a really, really specific.
Well, let me put this to you: Could Harrison Ford play Jack Burton? I think he'd do better than most, but
I think he'd do better than those professional wrestlers we were talking about.
Sure. Mm-hmm. But
depends on what era of Harrison Ford too, because
80s,
at a certain point,
Ford.
I feel like
Yeah.
right, yeah.
I'm gonna say the only aspects of Jack Burton that I like are his sort of hyperbolic things, while Harrison Ford tends to play rage in that space as well, where he tends to growl a lot more. I don't know if it would work the same way, because I like that Jack Burton is a bit more, or Kurt Russell is. He's just kind of squealing and no one's really paying attention.
He's bitching. Yeah.
While,
One of the
like, with
things-
Harrison, right?
Yeah. I think one of the things that I think, this in retrospect, and maybe this is one of those things where people clash with it back in the 80s, but now this is something that Marvel movies now trip up a lot on in terms of undercutting everything. People making snarky comics about the other guy. But in this movie, Jack is being a buffoon. The movie knows it, but the characters mostly just kind of, everybody around him just seem to let it slide. Right? They don't comment on it. It's just it's on us, the audience, to just kind of enjoy it. They don't. The movie doesn't like underline it any more than like just kind of showing the behavior, which I think is the thing that ends up being really smart in a way that I feel like modern movies overplay.
It does feel like the more modern version of this would probably have Gracie Law or whoever sort of vocally rolling their eyes at his shenanigans a lot more. Like she
Right.
does push
a
back
lot
on
more.
him,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they would. You're right. They would underline the gags that way with another character in a way that this movie doesn't, and it's probably funnier for that.
Well, I actually think this is one of the really effective things about the movie is that everyone kind of looks to him like he is the action hero of the story.
Yeah.
Like everyone will take direction from him. That he is in the front of every group running away. And
he like in front of that gate, and it was like everybody's like, "What are we gonna do, Jack?" It's like, "Well, we're stuck."
yeah,
We might be
exactly.
stuck.
Like
We might be stuck.
God, what a great. I mean, he certainly views himself that way.
yeah,
Is the guy.
Yeah.
But he's not totally Zap Brannigan. It's
No, exactly. Yeah, he's not a coward. I think that's key.
he's not
Like,
a coward,
there's-
and he's not completely incapable in a
The
fight.
hubris is there.
I'm just so lonely.
He's close there. I mean,
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
in the
it
lineage
is
of
approaching.
Zap Brannigan.
Like, but if you push it more towards Zap Brannigan levels, he essentially he starts to become a villain, and you don't want
Right.
that with Jack Burton.
Mhm.
Well, he carries the film completely. I mean, that's the thing. This performance is so extraordinary. I mean, I guess I'd say James Hong is doing a lot of good work.
He
in
is,
this too,
yeah.
but
Yeah,
equally important to the movie, just because like he is sort of the driving character, as you were saying. But without him, this movie is nonsense, though. Burton, that is. He's sort of what makes it the masterpiece that it is. Really, just sticking him into this otherwise very consistent world. Even Kim Cattrall she doesn't really. It's a hard movie to explicate. That's for sure. It's
To begin with, that character, I actually always wondered. Joon, actually, I don't know if you know this. I never actually did the research, but I've always wondered if like the Kim Cattrall character was initially supposed to be Asian.
No,
based
I
on the
don't.
name alone.
From some very brief like reading I did, apparently like the studio wanted a rock star to play Gracie Law, and Carpenter just really liked. I always forget her name, Kim Cattrall. That's about all I found out about it. Yeah,
I only ask because typically when I see a name like Law, that's like a
right. It's just-
Americanized version of an Asian
I think
name.
it's because
But,
she's a
like,
lawyer. I think it's like I think that's why it is.
right. It just keeps it nice and tidy. So when she says Gracie Law, she's actually doing like a whole title.
God, this movie's got
announcement,
layers.
Not-
The dialogue that she spouts, along with the banter she had with Jack Burton, is very much written like in the style of an old studio.
Rosalind Russell.
screwball.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's that style. So I think in that case, I feel like it was probably not specifically written to be white actress, but it was probably leaning that way anyway. Is my guess.
I was wondering about what that character was in the Old West version of the script. Like,
I have no idea. Like from the sounds of it, it sounds like it was a huge,
A completely different
heavy
script.
rewrite. Yeah, completely different script. Other than so I doubt the characters really are. There's any one-to-one correlations that you can find.
Apparently, Carpenter's largest contribution writing-wise to the script was Gracie Law related. That's largely his character,
Exactly.
which is interesting.
That's where he inserted himself as like the
Well, I think he did
the
his
Will Wheaton kind of Wesley Crusher character.
I think it's him doing his 1930s kind of I want to do his
Like
Girl
His
Friday
Girl
thing.
Friday kind of situation. Yeah, there you go. Well, I just love her performance so much.
It's already
in
an
this.
everything bagel. Why not add one more flavor to it? So sure, screwball comedy is let's try and fit some of that in there. And I have to wonder, like in some early version of the script, like were Gracie Law and the reporter character the same character? Were Wang and Eddie the same character? Like, why are Eddie and the reporter distinct characters in this movie at all? I can't quite figure out. I like having them around just because having more bodies around,
Yes,
to
fun.
enhance the confusion is and chaos is part of what gives this movie its fun screwball vibe.
At some point, Gracie Law needs someone else to talk to that isn't just going to contradict everything she says in the form of Jack Burton. So I think having just another journalist friend here, and the same with Eddie. Like Eddie, I completely forget Eddie's in the film, and then I remember it's like, oh, yeah.
Well, he pops up kind of
Nice
late,
guy.
and then it's like, did I miss the introduction of this character? He's just here now, eating an
basically.
expositing.
He walks in like he was always there
Right.
too. Like there's a confidence to him just being there.
Eddie's great.
which is one of the
Eddie's terrific.
yeah, which is one of the, like, in terms of let's get back in terms of the boring topic of representation, but there's just all shapes and sizes here. Like, even if there's like a big ass stereotype like Lo Pan, there's Wang, there's just a bunch of people that just gives you a lot of more flavors of what kind of people there are.
It seems like a community when you have all these guys running around together. Honestly, it
Right,
does.
and it's like, so it doesn't hinge on just one representation taking all that burden.
And you also got Egg Shen, and they've just got the what is it, the good guys, the yellow what are the wing.
Chang
The
Sing,
Chang Sing.
please.
Yeah, they just hang out with the Chang Sing all the time.
It's important.
And then one of them is sort of like the hero Ching Sing. I don't even think we ever get a name for him, but he gives the finger symbol, and sort of picks up the action sequence slack when Jack Burton knocks himself out. The big climactic action sequence.
But all this is world building.
There's no trickery. There's right.
All this is setting up this world that exists, that we get a sense of. Like, it's never explicitly stated like what Wang's past with the Wing Kong is, or not the Wing Kong, the Chang Sing, but it's pretty clear. Like, oh, he used to be part of that thing. He moved on to his own thing. He wants to own a business and get married, and it's all sort of in the background happening. That's what I'm talking about with like this great dense world building, and having Eddie and the reporter and all these characters and the three storms and like all these. Well, the mythology is its own thing, worthy of its own section.
I was about to force that topic in. If your transition was much nicer than mine.
Well, wait, I don't think we can go. Well, maybe this Three Storms is not totally separate from this, but let's talk some more about racism, guys. I want to talk about racism with you guys all day long. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm so glad we're
That's what we're here for. Yes.
Yes.
So I went into this, not having seen it in probably 10 years and a little braced for impact on like, this is one of the most 1986 movies that could possibly exist. And generally that would bring with it some baggage of the race stuff is not going to be that great. And obviously I'm the dumb white guy here, but I also shocked how
dumb white guy's the hero of the film, man.
Yes. But I was shocked how not racist I found a lot of this stuff. I was amazed that Jack Burton made it through this whole movie without ever using any kind of slur. Not just like an actual slur, but never just referring to it as like this egg roll over here or something like, kind of insulting. Like, it is more so than I expected. Any movie from, I don't know, 10, 15 years later even. It's about a white guy outsider to this culture, and it's about how he's fish out of water and all that.
He's bitching the whole time.
But that culture is never the joke. Never once, it feels like. And even though the joke is how insane and impenetrable the lore and like the fantasy elements are, if that stuff's actually racist towards Chinese, it's in a way that is too I'm blind to. I can't parse it entirely.
As Lee said, it's like, this does not represent us.
No, so I will. I'm gonna try to dance, not dance. This is an important topic when it comes to this film because it's still up for debate for a lot of people, and it was up for debate watching this as a kid and wondering, is this what they think of people that look like us? But for some reason, in my household growing up, we kept watching this film. Like, it was just over present all the time. And I've also connected with other groups, other filmmakers who are similar descent to me, who consider this one of their favorite films, who watch it all the time. And I do a lot of I have a lot of energy and work over in Hawaii, and there's this one restaurant that is notorious for having its bathroom decorated in nothing but Big Trouble in Little China paraphernalia. And this restaurant was famous for also having Kurt Russell visit it and taking photos as well. It's like, this is the greatest thing. And the people who run this are I'm Vietnamese descent, and so are they. So I look back now, as I've seen it still many times as an adult, and I used to show this on Lunar New Year while I have friends of all creeds come on over and just say, "Hey, everybody, celebrating Asian culture over here. Here's our film of the night." And it became this fun little trick because, as Al, you said it right on the money. Rewatching it, I agree with your sentiment. It's not actually meant to be insulting or racist to Asians compared to some John Hughes films or the Breakfast at Tiffany's of the world, where it's clearly about that kind of parody. Instead, as I emphasized several times so far, the real joke is Jack Burton.
Yeah.
The real joke is this person who is it's like we're traveling abroad and there's this one person who cannot eat anything, who is so uncomfortable, but is just trying to put on a positive face and just wants to get back to their vehicle in order to get out of this crazy world. But the world itself is autonomous, and it's got its own drama and problems, that it has no concerns about what's happening outside of this world. And that's the part where it's almost it's overwhelming and crazy, but you have to respect it because it does not care about you, right? The Wing Kongs and the Chang Sings will still be fighting long after that truck is gone.
Is that the only way this movie could have been as low, non-racist as it could have been, by making the white guy such a bumbling buffoon? Was that what it took? Is that a creative choice that led into if he's going to be a bumbling buffoon, let's not also make him racist. From the commentary that I got doing the little bit of reading, I think there were some things that Carpenter said that he had to kind of contend with, and he did make some alterations to, in terms of that kind of criticism or sensibility. So it was on his mind. So it sounds like he may have put in the effort.
Woke King John Carpenter. How about that?
Yeah.
Well, it also would have been so simple and almost defensible in a traditionalist screenwriting sense to have made him a little xenophobic or whatever to start with, and have him sort of growing to accept Asian culture or Asian friends or whatever as to be part of his character arc. But no, Jack Burton just digs Chinatown. Yeah. He just likes playing dominoes and drinking Chinese beer with his buddy. And he never he's not the guy who's uncomfortable traveling and doesn't want to eat anything. He's just hand me he's going to grab the dumpling and stuff in his mouth as he's on his way out the door, and probably talk with his mouth full because he's boorish, but he's not xenophobic.
But he hangs out in Chinatown all the time and gambles, and it's just part of the world there. And I mean, maybe one equivalence would be if somebody took me out to Ireland and then suddenly knocked on this weird looking door, opened the door, and it's this portal into Hobbit land or whatever. And if I went there, I'd be freaking out. What is that thing? Why is that old man casting spells on me? What is happening here?
A good idea for a movie.
Would that
man.
make me?
We don't get those movies.
As a man of Irish American descent, I can tell you the answer to most of those questions is going to be whiskey.
There you go. I'm feeling a lot of confidence. I can take on the whole world drinking this.
Such a weird guy. First of all, I love
that
just
scene.
the dialogue. See, the dialogue in this movie is all over the place, between being sort of tremendous and tremendously dumb.
The dumb ones are great too, though.
But even the same scene, that scene we were talking about earlier, where he's on the phone in the kimono, and it's a giant expedition dump. And in the same scene, it's this weird combination of fantastically deployed exposition of they're dumping this lore stuff on him, but he's on the phone arguing about insurance and isn't only half listening. And that gives the whole scene this dynamic that is much more lively and interesting than if they're just sitting there laying out folklore to him. But then you have the same scene. You have Gracie Love being that David Low Pan who is 6'2" and was born in 1960. Blah 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 blah. Just lays it on.
Mm-hmm.
And even not just for plot, but even for her character, she goes like, "Yeah, I stick my nose where it doesn't belong. I'll admit it." Stuff lines like that. It's like that's like this is my character profile. Mm-hmm.
That line reminds me a little bit of the talking about Zap Brannigan earlier, but the Futurama thing where Fry is confronting the Nemoidians, but you didn't think we'd even go to a museum, much less take this heat-seeking missile out of it. And the guy just shouts down, "I don't even know who you are." The greatest was like, "Yeah, I started this trouble." I'm like, "I don't think anybody asked." Like,
I'll admit it. I'm big enough of a person to say it like it is.
She's a bit of a jackass too, like not Jack Burton levels, but close. And I like that very much as well. She's enjoying that. Kim Cattrall is playing that. It's, I mean, the stupidest people in this are the white people for sure.
But having both of them around and being kind of done like that way means that also they both have somebody to interact with where they're not just being talked down to, like by everybody. They get to talk down to each other a little bit, which means that they're not just constantly being like, I don't know, sneered at.
Right. Well, I mean, there's this common topic when it comes to these kinds of narratives where like a white person goes into some exotic land and tries to help everything. In a way, those two have those different halves as well, where it's like Jack Burton's completely reluctant. He actually doesn't really want to save anything. He's just trying to survive. While Kim Cattrall actually is fundamentally a white savior and is a bit lampooned or disregarded or just kind of like, or at some point trafficked into sexual slavery, right? Like, just because she happened to have a common feature among white people. So it's like,
green eyes get double the price.
You didn't read that part of the lore when you were doing all your research on David Lopan? I guess not, but I'm so swept up in it, and just they're spinning swords, and there's a guy that like uses little weed whackers as a weapon.
Those are so cute.
I don't have time to I don't have no time to just be woke right now. I just got to really process everything.
I do love that 2/3 of the way through the movie, David Lopan's just like, "Hey, 2 brides, even better. Let's just do 2 now." And James Hong is just like so gleeful about that it sells it. Even though it's like, okay, this is a thing that feels like it should have been set up in a more straightforward story. It should have been set up better somewhere along the way.
God, it is amazing how David Lopan and Lopan are like completely different characters, like personalities and incentives. And administrative qualities, like I don't know how to reconcile that. Honestly.
Let's talk about Lopan here. This is such a good performance. God, I love this character. I am such a fan. Indeed. It's when he shows up in the wheelchair with excellent old age makeup, just ghoulish shit. That whole sequence, I don't know. I don't want to say my favorite scene in the film, but my God, it's such funny shit. It's just the best. Every little thing he's doing in there is hilarious. So Russell too, but like the dialogue they give Lopan in this scene is incredible. I mean, it's another exposition scene where he's talking about like, he's been cursed to have to be incorporeal and all that, but and the girl with the green eyes that he needs to marry to appease his god and the emperor, and then and Burton cuts him down. Is like, yeah, or the psycho ward. It's been 2,000 years. You haven't found anybody to fit the bill. And Lopan says like, well, the difficulties that men and women can have always fails, but like children, we just keep trying. It's the best.
He's he's trying to bro out with him a little bit. It's like, this is just locker room talk with us guys, right?
Setting up a bit compassion.
But no, the best part of that I think is him saying, Burton saying he doesn't get it, and him saying, "You were not brought upon this earth to get it." Like, that's so key to the whole like deployment of the folklore and the just lore.
That's a nice little lesson for a lot of our like confusion around the world building and just this environment. It's like, you were not put on this earth to get it, right?
Yeah, it's good.
That also has this is really pissing me off to no end, and it's
that is a fantastic delivery on that line.
Nothing but fantastic deliveries from James Hong. God, legendary.
Oh, the guy delivers.
I just can't help but really dwell on what was the game plan of having David Lopan disguised this way, with is he corporeal, but as a frail wheelchair, like 140-year-old man. But like James Hong wasn't that young when he was making this film. He was in his 40s, 50s, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
Am I questioning things that are just going to be SmackDowns? Like, just you don't get it, Lee. You
Well-
don't.
Well, it's not that we get it. It's-
I believe he has the ability to temporarily become corporeal, but it's with an aged, like the body has aged. You know.
It's not something that he would rather look
Mhm.
like. So that's why he's got
Oh.
Yeah.
it's
I don't think he can be killed in that form because it's sort of an illusion.
right. He's a lich.
Yeah.
I hate this shit.
But-
I hate this.
Yeah, the notes of pettiness that come through, even though he is an immortal demi-lich.
I love pettiness.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it plays off Jack Burton to great effect too.
Mhm.
The thing I would like to circle back to, one of my favorite, like, is the magic potion. The thing where they just
Yeah.
3/4 of the way through this movie, like, all right, time for the climactic fight. We better all do drugs real quick. It's fucking fantastic out of nowhere. Let's love the line. The line of dialogue that are so stupid that they're brilliant is just, what do you got there? Magic potion? Yep, thought so. What do we do? Drink it? Yep, thought so. Great. Just, I mean,
How about that toast too?
I wish I had the confidence to write something that dumb.
Here's to the Army and the Navy
Oh,
and the
the
battles they
toast.
have won. Here's to America's colors, the colors that never run. May the wings of liberty never lose a feather. Why is that in there? It's so good.
Yeah. Was there a version of the script where they were like war buddies? They served in the Navy together? I don't get that vibe from anything else. But I find that Jack Burton is a blowhard who will sort of like yes and anybody's toast when he's drinking. But no, just it's such a pointless scene to include, and yet so charming when they're just all riding the elevator down while the magic potion's kicking in. There's like, hey, yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm getting very positive vibes here, and I'm like, yes, I recognize this scene. This is the mushrooms are kicking in. These guys.
I love the Chang Sing like nodding along in the background too. The guys in the background just like, yeah.
Yeah.
The extras.
They're just all smiling and nodding to themselves.
And one of the extra guys is just like touching Egg Shen's shoulder, just like nice, comforting hand on his shoulder. It's like, and Egg is just kind of like,
That's
whatever.
Another excellent
And then-
performance. Oh god.
The scene ends. They just come out of the elevator like nothing happened.
Right. You
Yeah,
can
there's
lift it
no
directly
better-
out of the movie. Nothing would matter.
My god, the end of this movie. I mean, it's part of the build, really. Like the way this thing escalates and continues to escalate all the way through, and then they end up in this like combination of like a Chinese temple and like an 80s mall. The neon. It's so incredible.
Vegas showroom.
That's pretty precise.
An
Wow.
ogre
Okay.
statue. It's just like it's the best. There's an escalator.
Yeah,
He's riding down the
exactly. That's
escalator.
like the neon piping and the
Like
escalator.
neon lighting, yes. It's the wedding that's been, 5,000 years in the making, and this is what they came up with.
Oh yeah, and the wedding ceremony, which is mainly just the three storms doing their kata routines with their different weapons.
I love
In
that.
loving
It's
slow-mo.
such great nonsense too. Yeah, just like they have tamed the burning blade. It's touch the little button at the top of the ceiling, and the eyes like have a little electric glow.
And so now every time I'm like, wait a minute, is this super racist? Did I get it? I'm keep
Why
moving
would,
around.
but
No, it's
Like,
80s.
maybe-
It's super 80s, is what it is.
That's it's more
but
80s
like,
than
why
anything.
why would it be, right? Like, does it offend anyone? Is it?
I don't know.
Does it set back Chinese people? Like, I don't think so. It's wild. It's weird. It's totally made up. And it's
I mean-
awesome.
If a Chinese person wanted to tell me that this is like cartoonish and insulting, I'd be like, well, okay, it's definitely cartoonish, so
Yeah.
I'll take your word that the insulting part. But I think it is, it's partly like Joon was kind of saying earlier. It's just that the cast is so heavily populated with Asians that they're the heroes too, and then the villains, and it's not anything like about the white people have to come and clean up Chinatown or straighten out all of their backwards bullshit or anything. They're kind of it's their own internal fight that Jack Burton isn't even really butting into. He's just kind of running headfirst into it and falling on his ass.
He's tagging along,
He's a
with the hero. There's like they have their own sidekick. They have their own like little romantic banter on the side that are not the main characters, right?
That's true. Eddie is actually Wang's sidekick in some ways.
And he has his own little, banter with the other lady. I forget her name.
But she's
The other
played by
reporter.
Kate Burton. I don't remember the character.
Kate Burton, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Kate Burton, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say overall, though, I mean, this question does come up a lot, and if I may, I want to share a bit of an anecdote where one time I was able to watch Big Trouble in Little China in this massive theater in Portland, and it was like a lot of fun, and like they were serving alcohol and whatever. The only time I've ever experienced racism was when there was one person sitting in the aisle waiting for their ticket and was just pissed drunk and doing all the stereotypes that are independent of film, just stuff that like kids would do to each other, what have you, right? And I was just like, gosh, I really have never wanted to attack someone more. And then I remembered the philosophies of like Wang and Egg Shen and thought, you know what, there's a bigger battle I need to fight, and I just need to keep quiet for now. But to me, I think a lot of the times that people watch this film and extract like racist overtones with it, there might be some strange preconceptions that are going on towards Asian culture prior to jumping into a film like John Carpenter's Big Trouble in Little China. Because, that's also a perspective that Asian people have too towards it, thinking like any form of like imagery that's Asian face plus weird ass thing that's happening, therefore racist. To me, that math doesn't play very well. I think it's a lot better to like for people to really dig deep and see what's actually happening in the film the way that we're all doing. Because that makes it like perpetually delightful to me to see what's really happening on the ground. So sorry to bring down the mood a bit, but it was just like to me, I think we question it, but when we really think about it, like how can it be racist when it's completely beyond the imaginary of what we consider oppressive to one another, right?
It's like it's from another planet.
Yeah,
like from another country.
Yeah.
But that's the thing it's such an impressive magic trick to me that because so much of the comedy of this movie is built out of how weird that lore is and how impenetrable it is, and it somehow does it without really othering the Chinese culture. At least that's the way it comes off to me, and that is a strange trick that I almost feel like John Carpenter, again, we jokingly called him the woke king earlier. He doesn't seem like somebody who really thinks about that type of thing very deeply, and it strikes me as the type of
think he does
target that nobody could hit if they were aiming for it.
Well, I do wonder if maybe there's an element of accident to how successful this movie is. There's just so many crazy things going on in it, so much thrown in. Like usually, like this many ingredients will spoil the dish. Not in this case. It enhances it incredibly. That there's so much going on that to grapple with and keep track of and parse.
Yeah, it takes from every genre it can get its fingers on, like your salad bar.
Yeah, what a line! What a line!
I mean, the film's like 80% done, and it introduces an entirely new villain that I can assure you has nothing to do with Chinese lore, and it gets no introduction, and technically doesn't even have a conclusion, right?
Are you talking about the monster that comes out and they,
Of course, I'm talking about that freaking monster.
He does have closure. He's going to get his Jack's going to get his comeuppance when the thing crawls up on his truck.
That's not closure, Joon. That's a cliffhanger. That's a sequel opportunity.
Yeah,
right?
Carpenter and Russell disagree with that. That was just a fun test.
Yeah, no. Jack and that monster are going to have a fight in the cab of the truck while it's driving. And you know what? Flash forward at 48 hours later, they're drunk as piss.
Yeah,
that's his Chewbacca. That's his Chewbacca for the rest of his days.
That is kind of a wild man, like a Chinese wild man, right? Is the idea? It's based off of designs of a Chinese wild man, a folklore character? That's what I'd heard.
Sure.
I have no idea.
I'm sure things are based on things.
Yeah,
in
there's
this
a
film.
woodcut that kind of looks like that somewhere. But here's the thing. I have read. I've gotten into the Big Trouble in Little China comic book series in preparation for this, which picks up immediately where the movie ends up, and I can tell you exactly what the deal with the wild man is, or the beast, or whatever you want to call it. If you want to hear, it's kind of nice to have the elliptical ending.
Is this like available publicly, or is it does one have to buy?
No. There's trade paperbacks of it. It's pretty good, actually. It's fun. Written in part by John Carpenter. So it's one of the many projects he's been doing instead of movies. He contributed to the writing of Big Trouble comic books, which are apparently a whole thing. There's a lot of them. I've been picking them up, but there's plenty more if I want them.
I heard one thing about the Big Trouble comic books that I thought was great. which was that they continue the gag about the Chinese hells by having Lopan be in the hell for people who were killed by idiots.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
That's so good.
It's pretty good. A lot more weird mythology and stuff. It's fun. Fuck it. I'm going to tell you what the deal with the Wild Man is.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
by killing Lopan, Jack Burton has assumed ownership of that creature, and now it's going to follow him for the rest of his days. So it is very much a Chewbacca thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
See, my instincts were right.
Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's the best thing to do with that creature. Come on.
It's sort of an irritation. It's like, God, I got this thing following me around, and he gives him like a funny T-shirt and sunglasses, but he also beats up monsters that attack him. So he's a Chewbacca.
But you also want just some bits of the monster being a bad wingman when Jack is trying to spit game at.
That's
I'm trying
very
to think,
much.
does the monster ever have any like actual like invidious intention, like when capturing Kim Cattrall? Like,
He turns her over to Lopan, which is sort of like I kind of want this guy to be a free agent, and not a henchman, but
just
he's hooked by a curse. It's an obligation,
Right.
And then the moment Lopan is gone, it's like, I'm yours now.
But I think the reason why I'm sort of against the idea of those Big Trouble comic book continuations.
It is kind of a perfect thing on its own. Yeah.
Well, no, I think you could do more Jack Burton stuff, but I think what I would want from more Jack Burton stuff is not necessarily digging deeper into the Chinese folklore stuff. It's having him wander into other different types of movies and mythologies where he doesn't really belong, and have him like next stumble into a blaxploitation thing, or I don't know, an Agatha Christie drawing room mystery. I don't know. Maybe he stumbles into Tremors or onto a ship where there's a sea monster or something.
Oh, I think he'd be right at home in Tremors, though.
Yeah, he's not out of place enough in Tremors. Is the problem.
This place is boring. I don't like it.
I am feeling this notion of like, what if Jack Burton jumps into like high society, like Downton Abbey-esque kind of stuff, and he has the same kind of reactions, like, why is the butler doing that, or something? What's a Marquess? What's a Marchioness? Look, man, I'm just trying to get back to my carriage. I don't really want to deal with this crap anymore. I don't want to deal with the estate issues.
Yeah, but he's also like hitting on the Dame Maggie Smith character aggressively, and she's not.
One
No,
can only hope. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I think he probably should be abducted by aliens on his way out of town.
Now you're making the circle. Like, yeah. It's now it's just getting Guardians of the Galaxy all over.
Right. Okay. Well, all right. We've been going for a while here. We're almost as long as Big Trouble in Little China, the film. Mm-hmm. The feature film.
Mm-hmm.
I still can't believe they thought this movie was going to be a hit. What?
Well, they raced it out to beat Golden Child to
right. You're right about that.
Which was a hit.
Can we do a podcast on that?
Never seen it all the way through.
It's a less good movie for sure. Like, I think it made more money, but I mean, which one has the cultural footprint? It's Big Trouble in Little China for sure.
Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah, I mean, you can buy board games and shit based on it. You buy, this guy. It's still a humongous cult film.
Does Golden Child deserve a bigger lore? I don't know.
So look,
that one's got to be racist. That one's got to.
I've seen 30 minutes of The Golden Child when I was 13 years old or something on HBO. So this is a very dim recollection. But my impression is The Golden Child is a lot more of Eddie Murphy just by virtue of his comedic persona, rolling his eyes at the Asian culture stuff. And isn't this all silly? And don't you need me and my streetwise ways to cut through all your Oriental bullshit or whatever? And that's what Big Trouble, by virtue of going even bigger and goofier, somehow feels more respectful to me.
Well, yeah, it's like a deconstruction of I don't want to say. I don't know if it's quite doing white savior stuff. It's almost kind of before we really got our big white savior movies. This is pre-Dances with Wolves. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it is still sort of a deconstruction of that archetype, the John Wayne figure within this world. Golden Child is not that. Golden Child is as you say, Murphy being the smartest guy in the room. Worst special effects. There's a fun Charles Dance performance. There is one infuriating sequence where he has to carry a glass of water across a bottomless pit. And then there's a fire with a knife at the bottom. So long
since I've seen this.
That's like the only part of it I remember.
Yeah, and he doesn't pour the water on the fire. he drinks the water and then reaches into the fire, and I'm just like, what? No, that's that's terrible. I don't know.
That's some like
Maybe that just bugs me, but it does.
that's some
bug
like
me.
LucasArts adventure game shit.
Yeah.
What do you mean I had to drink the water?
That is something. LucasArts Adventure. That's kind of. Big Trouble has a little of that too. There's a little of Monkey Island.
I will give my right arm, maybe just for a LucasArts like click your own adventure kind of situation. Big Trouble in Little China, but like because I love playing the Indiana Jones versions of those. And,
Those were great.
things as well. But like anything, and I would not mind at all if they just went a little bit more into like here's like 20 other challenges where like floating head of eyeballs comes and attacks you.
Jack Burton would be a great LucasArts adventure snarking character. You
could do a great version of it.
multiple lines of dialogue before each fight.
Well, I'll do you one better. What I wouldn't give for a 1990s John Carpenter adaptation of Monkey Island.
Nice.
Like not really his vibe generally, but this film proves he could do it. I think. God, a John Carpenter pirate comedy.
He needs to be in that right mood. He needs to be in that right mood. Just
He might still do it. You know, he
he's
likes
not
video
gonna do
games. I don't think Monkey Island does his type of video game, but
probably not.
but he respects the medium.
what video games does he like? I don't have a sense of that.
He likes
shooters, is what I've heard.
He likes NBA
okay.
2K.
I want him to make that movie.
Yeah.
Make
I
that
wanted
movie.
NBA 2K.
Like they're making Gran Turismo. Nothing is off limits.
He has said like, I actually really like Dead Space, and I'd like to make a movie about it. And I'm just like, give him money to do that.
Yeah,
Like, it's
for
a
God's
perfect
sakes,
John
yes.
Carpenter movie. Yeah, I don't care if he's old and he blows it. It's worth the chance. It's absolutely what should happen. But yeah,
You know what else would be awesome? Will get me to buy NBA 2K 2024 whatever. If they had like an alternate setting on there where you could turn on an original John Carpenter score
oh, that's good.
for the basketball game.
I was thinking you were going to say we should have like a John Carpenter head, like NBA Jam style.
The NBA Jam.
Oh, it's so good.
Jack Burton should have been an unlockable character in NBA Jam.
He should be in something. Put him in the Mortal
Probably
Kombat.
Lopan too.
Yeah.
Lopan
Mortal-
is in Mortal Kombat.
And so
Boom,
is
shakalaka.
Raiden and Shang Tsung are both like. Well, you just saw Big Trouble in Little China, you know.
Yeah.
I think that's explicitly true. Actually, I think Raiden is like, yeah, it's from Big Trouble. I think they said.
It seems like it. I mean, I think there's a deeper, whatever, religious figure to the name or
But
whatever.
is Mortal
There is, but the
But
Mortal
no one
Kombat guys.
accuses Mortal Kombat of being weird
think they just suck.
until Christopher Lambert was cast as Raiden. Raiden was just totally fine for all of us. We're fine. This is good. Yeah.
Christopher Lambert, such a great. if you're gonna whitewash a character, that's the way to do it. Give him his
He's
own
no race
weird
at
ass
all, yes.
accent. Like,
I don't
yes.
think so.
God, just what a
Sorry.
strange decision that was. All right, we're really off the rails here. I mean, I guess that's.
Sure.
But the Pork Chop Express doesn't run on rails. It's all over the place.
Yeah,
all right.
this is an influential movie. Like, it's surprisingly for being a bomb and for being so weird. This pops up all over the place. James Hong has done versions of Lopan in like I don't know, like a dozen children's cartoons. Like he'll show up for a specific Big Trouble riff on the Ninja
Sorry,
Turtles.
that sounds concerning, but that's awesome too.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's a dude who works. I mean, he's still like he's
Yeah.
huge role in Everything Everywhere All at Once. Yeah, he's
That's right.
he's been here the whole time. Just got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. As a matter of fact, like
Oh, what was it? One of the things he's like so old that Carpenter was talking about on the commentary track, and this was recorded back in 2001, where it's like, oh yeah, James Hong performed in USO tours in blackface. It's like, ah!
wow. I think he's like 90,
What?
right?
Did it say this before or after the star was like put into the cement? Like, John, could you just give me like 3 weeks, man?
Work is work.
God.
Yeah. I'm surprised
my
Victor
God.
Wong wasn't just there, like feeding those stories to the press, being like,
Oh, there you go.
Well,
"Once
he's
they
long
take
dead.
that star
He
from
is-
him, I'm next."
Wong's dead, I'm afraid.
Oh,
A great actor though.
So now there's
He's
a guy
really
that's
great
in
this.
Tremors.
Yeah, he is in
That's true.
Tremors. Kind of
And
doing the
Gremlins.
same thing. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
when I was giving John the nerd test a week ago, it was just either or questions. I definitely should have had James Hong or Victor Wong as one of the options.
I'll give it to you now. Hong, but only by a little. You know,
Oh, I think it's pretty easy for me. I'd say for Hong.
yeah, Hong's great. Hong's a legend, and you know, still out there.
Am I missing like a drama between James, Victor Wong and James Hong, or is that just a joke?
They have mental samurai battles.
Okay,
it's-
I meant like in real life Hollywood gossip.
No, I just found something
That would
funny
be a
about the
great
idea that they were
feud.
going to they were going to quickly revoke James Hong's star, and then Victor Wong was going to try and swoop in and take it.
That would be funny if the Chang Sung just showed up at the ceremony. Just sticks. Yes.
Don't you know this star resides above the location of the Great War?
Yeah, your body and spirit are going north and south. Yeah.
Yes. Has anyone ever tried to do that trick, by the way, to actually cut a bottle in half?
No, it seems.
I'm just gonna tell you, don't do it.
Yeah, it
Don't
seems
do
like
it.
a
I've
real
got, like, a
sucker
little
bet on
star
Wang's
here.
part there. Honestly, like I don't think he's going to be able to do that.
He wasn't paying attention to his, yin and yang.
But he goes for it anyway.
Usually he got that.
Yeah, nothing or
That's
double.
That's a Jack Burton spirit.
Mm.
We haven't talked much about Dennis.
Well,
Dang.
okay, yeah. All right.
You know, he's awesome.
He's pretty good in this, yeah.
It's one of those where like, why didn't he get more? I have no idea what his career was like afterwards, but I thought he was, really, really capable hero in this.
You might know the answer to that, Joon.
Yeah.
Sorry. So, again, not to go back to racism. But like it's the same answer as why Ke Kwan is now,
Right.
took 30 years to become. It's just
Is
been a
Dennis
tough
Dunn going to
time.
get his Kwan moment eventually?
I'm rooting for it all the way. Yeah.
He is. He's in the next Carpenter film. He's in Prince of Darkness. He's works in the '80s a bit. I think he's in some movies.
So is
He's a
Victor
year-
Wong, right?
Year of the
So is Victor
Dragon.
Wong.
This.
Yeah, I think Year of the Dragon got him cast in this.
Yeah, I think that's what I read.
He really looks like a sidekick, I must say.
He's very slight in
So,
stature.
Yeah, he's little. He's he's got the kind of a cute boyish face. He's like a foot smaller than Kurt Russell.
He plays off Russell well. They don't. I feel like they don't always have a handle on the character. Like even that introduction scene, it feels like we're sort of seesawing back around. Like, what exactly is this relationship? Are they really close old buddies? Are they just acquaintances? Are they as hostile to each other? And it kind of goes through all of that in like 45 seconds. It feels like, but
They're friends. It's about that's it. They go back.
I think I describe it as Wang looks at Jack Burton as like he's just like this cool guy
Mhm.
that happens to hang around these Chinatown docks, and sometimes he wins a lot of money from him, sometimes he doesn't. But he does look up to him and needs like a little bit of mentoring and friendship. I'm going to use my Star Wars references to death when it comes to Big Trouble. To me, he's got just nonstop Luke Skywalker. Hi, my name's Wang. I'm here to marry you, or whatever kind of vibe. but in terms of just especially his natural ability and a little bit of cockiness, right? There's that kind of energy that for some reason, because he's not put more front and center, he's just kind of part of the motivations that are conflicting with the other motivations of characters. That upon future watching, he becomes more and more of the real hero for me, and the real like if I'm going to be a character, I want to be this character because
That does present itself like in future viewings. Yeah, that's a thing.
he's also sort of. I mean, he's sort of Luke Skywalker. It's also sort of the Kato Green Hornet dynamic.
yeah.
Although,
I mean,
yeah.
the Seth Rogen movie, actively, I think they quoted this movie as an inspiration for.
Well, that is an interesting film because that movie does explicitly what the sidekick hero kind of swap in this film is. Like, this film gets a lot of credit for, like, actually, if you think about it, Jack Burton's the sidekick. I don't quite buy that because he's so clearly the protagonist and nobody else seems to understand that. Green Hornet, that is explicit. Like, Kato gets the girl. Kato is essentially the protagonist, and Green Hornet, Seth Rogen, is the buffoon. But like, he's very ineffective and is like actively pissed off that Kato is stealing his thunder. It's
Right.
I mean, it's a less effective movie in about every way, but they are trying for that, and I think they over season that particular relationship in a way that doesn't work like many of the other things in Green Hornet. But they kind of nail it in this one, right?
What is it? I think what is it? The the script, that rewritten script for contemporary 80s. John Carpenter gets hired for it, and he makes it the way he wants to. And I think both he and Kurt Russell talk about, I don't think Fox liked the dailies they were getting back when they saw what, the antics that Jack Burton gets into. Like, he doesn't get, the big fight starts, and he's like, he accidentally tosses his knife, and he's like looking for it, and by the time he comes back, the fight is over.
So good.
Right? Stuff like that. It's like it's like, what movie are you making here? So like, I think one of the concessions I think Carpenter says that he made is that he starts out the movie off with that Egg Shen prologue. It's like, you leave Jack Burton alone. Like, that was a addition that he made to kind of frame it more
I love that opening.
as like a Jack Burton
Jack Burton's a
story.
recognizable
Right.
hero, actually.
Right.
That scene,
Which I feel like it's probably not necessary because the rest of the movie seems to play it like that anyway, as John was saying. Like, in terms of, is Jack Burton the sidekick? Like, maybe in somebody else's story, but in this movie's case, he is the lead.
He's the protagonist,
I mean,
at least.
I don't know, because but Wang has the guy who's got the actual motivation to be doing all this stuff, and is kind of dragging. I mean, yes, Jack Burton's more the center of the frame, but in terms of driving the story, he's very reactive. The other characters making more decisions and telling him where to go at all times, it feels like. But that opening scene is such a weird thing. Like, I love it. It struck me initially as like, this is really unnecessary and like setting up a completely different movie than what this movie actually is. And then as moving on, I kind of came around to like loving it for that it's mythologizing something that the rest of the movie will undermine so much. And Egg Shen's, really all he says is Jack Burton showed great courage. He doesn't say that Jack Burton did anything, or that we couldn't have done it without him, or that Jack Burton saved our rec center, or whatever it is. Or he just basically says, don't you talk bad about Jack Burton. He tries his best.
I love that scene because it also, like, this is something it adds without even touching on Jack Burton. The way magic is introduced into the movie is that scene. It sets that up at the beginning with that great opening sting on the soundtrack. I love the music in this. This is one of my favorite Carpenter scores, actually. And it is in that scene with the lawyer, whoever that guy is, Deep Throat from X-Files, is like, and you want me to believe in magic? Is like, oh yes, Chinese black magic and sorcery. And it's just like, okay. And you get the little lightning blast. That's how it starts. Very little. And it's just like, okay, this is a mystical world that we are entering into. And you kind of have that in the back of your mind as it progresses. And so when the storms show up in 20 minutes, it's not a shock. It's something you're kind of keyed up and ready for. And then it just ramps up from there.
It's like, these are the times of high adventure.
Yes. Yes.
Kind of thing.
Exactly.
It's like, it sets up that tone.
I love this. It's such a good. It's an adventure film. It really is. I think more than anything.
Yeah.
As funny as it is, as it's just exploring new worlds here. Finding this place that exists beneath the world you thought you knew. That's the fun of it. And there's incredible backstory here. There's deep Chinese sorcery that goes back to the 2nd century BC, and and gods who became men, all that shit. I love it. Love this film.
Big Trouble in Little Narnia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know who the character we haven't talked about at all? Ming Yao.
Yeah.
Because she is an inanimate object for 90% of the movie.
Played by a model, I guess.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No,
you mean like an actual plastic mannequin?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, she has some lines. I think an hour and 30 minutes in.
Did we cover everything just now?
She has green eyes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Does she actually have green eyes? I assume so.
Maybe they're contacts, but who knows?
I would imagine. You can't really.
Chinese girls don't come with green eyes, Joon.
We didn't talk about the brothel scene, really. God.
Yeah, right. We didn't talk about Jack Burton going on.
That's my segue into a scene of relevance. Apologize to anyone who's listening.
Oh, it's so good. It sure is raining cats and dogs out there.
Could Harrison Ford pull that scene off? Is the question?
Well, he did. He did it. He did it in Blade Runner.
He's done in Blade Runner. I do like it when, especially in Indiana Jones films, he's playing other characters, like when he brings Elsa Schneider into the camera. It's like, where are the tapestries?
It's about time.
How dare he?
There's the buffoonery. Yeah.
That is the most Jack Burton Indiana Jones gets. Yeah, that's great.
Mhm.
Oh, quickly. While we were talking about Wang, you have all heard, I assume, the rumor that Jackie Chan was supposed to play this role.
I read about that. Yeah.
Yes.
Does that changes the film dramatically? Now, some people say the studio didn't want him because he didn't speak English very well at the time. Other people say it's because he wanted to make Police Story instead.
I'm happy he did make Police
Yeah.
Story.
Yeah, I
Oh
mean-
my God. I'd assume in this case that there's so much rat-a-tat dialogue between the two of them. Jackie Chan couldn't have done it back then. No.
Yeah, the thing, I mean, the great Dennis sells the thing so far about saying that it's the hell of burning oil or whatever. He goes, "You're kidding me." Yeah, I am. It just says keep that. Like
Yeah.
Jackie Chan would not have sold that the way that he does.
If I had a vote, and this is a total pander to Joon, I think like Stephen Chow probably would have pulled something like this off a little bit.
Oh, sure. I feel like Stephen Chow is making movies like this.
But he
still.
might have but he probably would have wanted to take over the whole film anyway.
Yeah,
But,
I think that's
which
would
could have
be
been-
the big thing. Like it, they would not utilize. I don't think Carpenter could have utilized. At that time in the Hollywood of the '80s, they would have utilized those talents as well. Even like Carpenter himself
Right.
admits, like, yeah, this is kind of like low rent versions of like amazing stuff that they're doing in Hong Kong. Like he
I
just
wanna-
admits that.
And I
One
know
of the
we
things
s-
that yeah,
Sorry, go
go ahead.
I
One
was
of the things
gonna
that
say,
really.
I-
sorry.
Who says go ahead and it just jumps right back into their point?
Both of us did.
May
I
I?
think.
May I? Or
keep
you?
it in.
Or let's talk at the same time and have John and Al edit it in their own way. All I was gonna say is I know we talk a lot about the racial aspect of it all. Something about this film that I do kind of appreciate and is that it's not about China. It's about America and like this strange experience. So a lot of the actors are Americans who are in these prominent roles, right? And therefore I do think it's important that they speak English fairly well. I know Jackie Chan at the time couldn't speak English until still
Like even in
question,
like
but-
Rush Hour, he was still having trouble.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Or I mean, I enjoyed the dubbing of Rumble in the Bronx, but I digress. But I do like the fact that there's
Rumble
something
the Bronx
that,
rules.
Rumble in the Bronx rules, right? But not for Jackie Chan's,
You are garbage.
synced up dialogue for that. But my point is, it's like I like the fact that it's not a film that takes place in Beijing or Shanghai or Macau. It takes place in San Francisco, right? It's almost like this is still a portal to the weirdness of Asianness in America that, to me, creates a potential for inclusivity for other people who are like, I feel weird about this, but it's still kind of cool, much like when I go down to Chinatown. So if that's the kind of essence, I like the fact that the other actors are extensions of that as well.
That's
Yeah,
good.
they're
Good point.
they're
Yeah.
Asian American. Jackie Chan was
I think
just Asian at that point.
I think it's easy to kind of think like, well, I mean, Jackie Chan would have had incredible fight scenes, and you would have seen like you would have made the sidekick hero thing a lot more explicit. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it's probably a better movie with Dennis Dunn in it. Oddly enough, yeah.
Well, to put Jackie Chan into it and have it work at all, you have to rework entirely how the movie works and how the pressure. Like you can't be racing the golden child out. Like you have to. If you can give it more time to actually let him show off do some proper stunt work and big fight scenes, sure. But the way they were making this movie, he just would have been worse at the dialogue.
Right.
They weren't going to be able to pull off the fight scenes with him, even if they had his body there.
with the short schedule and like not without that infrastructure that Jackie Chan has. Like all this stuff about like what this movie could have been. They even talk about that. Like it's not second guessing themselves, but they talk. Russell and Carpenter talk about in commentary. Like, what if we had made because we talk about the Marvel undercutting problem, like in terms of the stakes. They talked about reviews back then that said like this movie is like nonstop hip. Like so, there's always this distance. You never feel like Jack Burton or anybody's in any danger. Jack Burton and Kim Cattrall, they have a banter, but you don't care that much about whether they're going to be together or not. Like it's
movie
always
does
there's
neither.
a sense of right. And the thing is, then they talk
Jack
about
Burton also doesn't care as well.
Right. He goes like, it's like, aren't you going to give her a kiss? Like, nah. Right. Just and they leaned into that hard and like knowing that this was probably not going to like please everybody, but in the end, it pleases people that really, really get it. Right?
Like it's such a weird critique, though. It's
all this stuff, like the conventional stuff. Like even you were talking about, like what if Jack Burton starts out a little, he like uses some slurs here and there, but he gets to the more conventional screenwriting method. Would that make it a better, like quote unquote better movie, maybe, but it wouldn't be this movie that stands out in a very, very special way, right?
No, this is an artist's expression. Like clearly, like this is not Carpenter trying to please anyone other than himself. It seems, and what it pleases him, I think, pleases a number of other people as well. Clearly, a lot of the creative team was on the same page, and this movie definitely found its audience.
Right.
This is a cult hit. Like maybe
Thing is,
one of the most cult hit movies of all time.
it seems like the reviews even back then were actually pretty good from what I was kind of reading back into. Like the reviews were pretty positive. It's just that the audiences didn't show up, and like in trying to beat the Golden Child to the theaters, they ended up hitting Aliens like Aliens came out only like a couple weeks later.
Mm-hmm.
So it just got decimated. It's like ET style. I don't know, Thing in ET style.
What a summer that would have been, huh? Just those two movies alone. God, what a summer!
And we would have been happy. We would have been happy with it. Now it's like nonstop, and it's like, sure, what else is new?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, now we're spoiled.
There will not be a single film this summer as good as either of those.
I don't know. I went to go see the new Spider-Verse movie last night.
Yeah, is it as good as Aliens? Okay.
Is this as good as Big Trouble in Little China? Let's speak now.
I think Oppenheimer is going to be.
Is it
just
more
as
or
funny
less
as...
racist?
This summer, make mine Oppenheimer.
I kind of know how Oppenheimer ends, though, right? Or is it still kind of ongoing? Is it like a bigger question? It's like, is it over?
Well, yeah, I think they're going to set up Oppenheimer too, right? That's
right.
I got to do the
I
trilogy.
think it's going to be like a Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Tumor. That's actually very good.
Where it's actually God damn it.
It's not an Oppentumo.
Michael Caine comes in and just taunts.
Oh
my God!
I'm afraid you have cancer.
God,
We cannot build the bomb. We should not build the bomb.
I want to see Christopher Nolan's gritty reboot of Big Trouble in Little China now.
With Dwayne Johnson, of course.
It'll be awful.
I don't know why I got so upset over that, but that just upset me for some reason, because it's going to be like 2 hours and 50 minutes, and there's going to be like 60 different soundtracks happening of just now, but like, but it might be good. But I don't think.
No, that's true.
Man, we kind of talk about the remakes on this on these Carpenter films because a lot of them have been remade. Thank God this one hasn't.
I don't think you can. Like, there's no good way to do this. It's not.
No.
It's not straightforward. The charms of it are not.
No,
like, they're not
duplicating the
simple.
plot is not going to result in a film anywhere near as good. Yeah.
It has to be ragingly self-aware and meta. And
it would be. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's a line you can dip too far into, and you need the right kind of movie star that's willing to go that far if you want to chase that tone at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But who's going to do that? Because Chris Pratt's already doing Jack Burton.
Yeah, I don't want to see Pratt's version of this. I don't want to see Dwayne Johnson do it.
We have though.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah, but I don't want him to see.
Version.
I don't want him to see him do Jack Burton though explicitly with the tank top and shit. That would be awful.
No, and the reason The Rock or even John Cena or Dave Bautista, like those guys have comedy chops, but if you make them as buffoonish as Jack Burton, just by their physicality, it comes off totally differently. It's a totally different type of performance. It's a joke about how dumb these big muscle men are.
Kurt is a specimen in this, though, to be fair.
Oh yeah, he's well, he has the thing. He looks
see his
like
arms. You see his arms when he's holding on to the wheelchair tile wheels.
Yeah. And that's the thing. He looks like he would be capable enough in a fight if he could ever actually find his way into one in a helpful fashion.
If he doesn't get knocked out prior.
Oh no, my knife.
Or if he's just tumbling downstairs in a wheelchair. Like, that's...
God. Is there really a deleted scene though? I got to ask, where like in between like the most intense acts of the film, Jack Burton just went back to that place to go retrieve his knife. Is there actually a scene out there that's made of that?
No, he actually does. He actually does get the knife, but then by the time he comes back with the knife, the fight is over.
He jumps back out with the knife and
Wang's,
the gun.
Wang's done with it all.
I like when he shoots that guy and is surprised that he killed the guy with the gun. He's like, "That's the first time you blow someone away." He's like, "No,
of course not."
Burton's gun face is fantastic too. It's that two front teeth going like Bugs Bunny.
Yeah, he's kind of shaking the gun at people as he shoots at them. Like that's, he jabs it at them as he shoots.
There's this one line when he like reconnects with Wang, and they have like two different side guns. It's like, I found a gun too. It's like, trade ya, and they just swap guns.
And then he switches with Eddie too.
Right.
That's a great little bit. No, that's all right.
Non-stop great bits. That's this film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were to redo it, I guess, do you just put Wyatt Russell in?
I mean,
No.
I think we've said that a number of times. Not for this one. For Snake,
Yeah, we said
sure.
that for Snake.
For Snake, yes, that's fine, but not for this. No.
What's the age range are we talking about here? Like under 40?
35, 45, probably, as long as you got the
Yeah.
arms to do it, I suppose.
I was thinking like Jason Sudeikis or something, like, who can just maybe handle the humor more, but can be a bit on the more masculine side kind of style. Again,
that's
this
not bad.
That's a pretty interesting.
Statham did a decent version of this in that Melissa McCarthy film.
Spy movie.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't really even talked about The Beholder at length.
What is there more to say?
It's a good puppet.
It is.
How did they do that? I don't know.
Like, sort of like plot creature. Like, oh, hey, just so that you are not sneaking around and there's no way to get around any surveillance, there's a freaking thing that has many eyes.
Yes, it has plot purpose, but isn't it more just the pure joy of putting a beholder in a film?
And apparently that effect cost like $100,000 or something.
Worth every
Like
penny.
that was just them like flexing, like, let's do this. It's got some great effects.
And they take a moment to just sit and explain the beholder, right? Like it's
what he sees, Lopan knows. Yeah.
Thank you, Egg Shen. Thank you.
I was trying to think if there was a female action star that could do a gender swapped version of Jack Burton, but I don't know if anybody's got that sort of persona.
They don't give women roles like this ever, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean, I always say give it to Charlize. She can usually pull it off, but it's not perfect.
Like Sandra Bullock, maybe.
I feel like she kind of made a career of that already, a little bit. For like miscongeniality.
Not to go back to men again, but like Ryan Reynolds,
No, I don't want Ryan Reynolds.
No.
You know what? Then let's not do this.
Yeah,
why can't we?
Yeah.
I reject a remake of this more than most. I would say this is something I don't want.
All right, you know what? I was hoping that we'd be a little more like open and like the brainstorms. Like, okay, we'll consider it. And
I go see it.
The group's summary dismissal just hurts my ego a little.
We are not brought upon this earth to fan cast.
No, Ryan Reynolds is somebody too that like his whole career is sort of like Chris Pratt, but even more so almost has just got a big chunk of Jack Burton in the DNA of everything he's ever done.
It's just to cast against the casting, it's just hard.
Yeah.
I'm going for types all the way.
Well,
but yeah.
Russell is so unique in that, like, he can do the comic version, the sort of satire version of a protagonist, and an actual action protagonist at the same time. Like, this doesn't feel like a send up, even as it kind of literally is. It's he's best of two worlds.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at the very
way.
beginning. And I was sort of like throwing out there, like, is this a spoof of some kind? It feels like it's a send up of something, but like of a type of movie that doesn't really exist. It feels like, I mean,
well, the send up I think is of the action movie protagonist, the sort of the John Wayne kind of, that character is the send up. The rest of it is quite straight faced.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not so much, like I said, it's almost predating the white savior thing becoming more prominent in especially like action movie terms, but it is about the white guy who has the confidence of just presuming that he's the protagonist of the movie, even though it doesn't have much to do with him really at all, and just being unable to be dissuaded that he's actually, like, I am what is needed in every scene here to fix whatever this is. I don't know what it is. I can't quite follow it, but I'm sure that I'm the one who can fix it.
Yeah, it's vaguely and delightfully subversive in its own way, right? And I can watch that again and again and again, to watch like people with a lot of great intentions and pure ego just fall flat on their face over and over again.
And yet, like children, they keep trying. Yeah,
they keep trying.
I love this film. I love it. I think it's an absolute masterpiece. There's nothing else like it. Carpenter's resume, nothing else feels like this at all, and the fact that he is able to pull this off and has this ability in his toolbox is remarkable. It increases my respect for him dramatically. He's a master. This is I mean, I don't know. It almost does feel like a film that kind of is accidentally as good as it is, just because it's so you couldn't duplicate this. Thank God they didn't do a sequel either. You know, it would be real hard to pull this off, even as there are cool ideas.
It's one of those, yeah. It's one of those things where you're maybe kind of glad it didn't do so well, so it can become that standalone cult classic.
Yeah, I couldn't get my board game of it if I didn't. It didn't have a 25-year journey to relevance.
It feels like it was destined to be a cult movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is unique for me, and that it is the only good-natured John Carpenter movie that I've experienced. Really, like
isn't Starman?
Starman.
Yeah, I would say Starman's a bit, but it's kind of sappy and sentimental, and it feels like he's just doing. It feels like he's just doing an impression of the way that like Benjamin Button feels like Fincher doing.
That's brutal, man. That's savage.
I was a star of. I was on that podcast.
You were on that podcast, Liz, yes. And I despised that one, but it felt like Fincher doing somebody else's movie and doing a sort of impression, be like, "See, this is not that hard. You can to do this type of thing."
I was actually going to bring up like David Lynch doing Straight Story. He's like, "Yeah, I can do this stuff in my sleep
if I wanted to."
Yeah, if I wanted to, but I just don't.
But this is not a genre exercise. This is not him doing a Lethal Weapon film or something like that. This is like this is such a unique its own thing.
This is spin, But the thing is, it's somebody else. He usually writes his own stuff, right?
Well, less so at this time in his career, but I mean, he's coming back to some more of those. You know, Prince of Darkness.
The impression I got with Starman was that was him trying to just basically like prove that he can do it, so he kind of get a little bit of cachet back.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
I think so.
But this one, this one doesn't feel like this is just like I'm going to do what I want.
Yeah. I mean, this is good natured, and his heart. It feels like his heart's in it in a way that I don't get from Starman. But that's me.
I would agree.
I haven't seen Starman for a long time, so I don't know.
It's a film with a lot of passion. This one is. Starman. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think he likes Starman. I think it's a pretty good movie.
I don't think at his heart that John Carpenter is a romantic at his heart, but I think he is kind of a big goofy dweeb.
Yeah, well, true enough. I mean, it's odd that this film is so clearly like one of his most passionate, most energetic, most definitive films. It's nothing like the rest of the 17 movies on his resume. You know, nothing else feels like this. I don't think there's anything of his that I'd call a comedy. Maybe Escape from L.A., I guess. You know, but that's like
maybe about
it, and that's kind of a lesser version of this film too. It's an outlier, but it's also kind of a defining film for him. It is a contradiction, and yeah, I mean, as I said at the beginning of this, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. I think it's just such a unique, perfect thing. I love it. Absolutely.
From what I read, it sounded like Carpenter swore off making studio movies after this. Nothing because of what went wrong with this movie. He loved working on this one. It's just that it just didn't play out, and it put him. Did he not?
It was a bomb. It lost a lot of money.
Was it because it was like a $25 million budget?
Made
which
11.
And I did the inflation calculator on it, which makes it somewhere between 56 and 70 million, which makes that like a
the film no one makes anymore.
Something that nobody makes is the mid-budget.
Right, but not considering like special effects, like so much of this was practical. I mean, there was, of course, not that, but like it took a lot of.
The lack of CG in this is wonderful. The effects are so cool in this movie.
I saw The Thing like as an adult. That was the first time I saw it, and that made me go like, "Holy shit!" You know, it doesn't feel like no effects feel like this, like today, like that kind of feeling. So I get that same thing here too.
One thing I love about this is all the practical stunts too. You know, obviously we were saying this is not really a huge kung fu movie, but it certainly has a lot of people like just blowing up and like jumping off screen on a trampoline. It's like whoa! You know, a lot of that.
Like, I think it's like we didn't use any wires; we just used trampolines a lot.
I can't get enough of that. Every time that happens, I'm just like, it's great. Yeah,
it's one of the things like it's really charming. If a movie today did it, you wouldn't put up with it, but because it's something from like like from back then, you could put it in that mindset and just go, I love this.
God, I would love it if they did this in a Marvel film of just a lot of people just getting yanked off screen by wires. Just explosion happens in the foreground.
I would love it if Shang-Chi 2 featured David Lopan in some sort of cameo role.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
maybe
give
some
that'd be
Beholderkin.
good. Mm-hmm.
give Shang-Chi 2 to Carpenter.
God.
I don't think he'd be into that.
No.
He's
I'd
busy
be
writing
into
my
it.
alternate
God.
score for MBK
No.
2K44.
I'm shooting a facial scan so they could put me on one of the players.
Oh god.
All right.
Well,
So
thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
We have gone at least as long as the movie itself at this point.
think
Check out the
officially,
Pork
yes.
Chop Express podcast, people.
Absolutely.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
going to.
Appreciate you all so much. This has been such a fun thing. I know we've taken a long time to plan it, but I could talk about this for another half hour or so, or 3 hours. But I'm going to respect y'all time. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thanks
much,
for coming,
Lee.
Lee. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, June. This was a blast. All right. That's
all right.
I don't know, some funny Jack Burton quote to take us out right now. It's happening. Okay, and that's it. Just insert.
What's
Jack
the last
Burton
thing the
quote.
monster says?
Yeah. Give me your best shot. I can take it. Yeah.
Well, you all know what old Jack Burton usually likes to say. The hell with it.
You know what old Jack Burton always says at a time like this?
Yeah, there you go.
Me Undies is a quality brand.
That'll do. Thanks for listening, everybody.